I added Tabasco to Wendy's chili and used it to get second place in a chili cook-off. Title basically says it all. This wasn't a professional organized competition. There was some BMX event with a couple hundred people and they always have a chili cook-off. I'm not much for cooking, so I thought it would be funny to throw a bunch of Wendy's chili in a crock pot and see if anyone noticed. They didn't. I've been a vegetarian for roughly 12 years, so this was a long time ago. Surprise. First place was just Wendy's chili, no Tabasco. Work smart, not hard. At our local VFW's chili cook-off a few years back, the scandal was that the winner's recipe was 11 cans of Hormel chili and 1 jar of grape jelly. Coconut were bunched, rules were changed, but hot coconut, that was some good chili. Now this is a confession.
Stuff like this must be pretty common. Guy in my dad's ABATE chapter took first in one of their chili cook-offs with cans of clearance IGA chili, no modifications. Some were pissed, some thought it was hilarious.
Did you win anything for second place?
Top 3 got a trophy and the winner got some cash. It was more as a yearly bragging right thing than anything else. I just thought it would be funny. I didn't realize they were going to like it so much, but once I started serving it was too late to be like lol JK.
I kicked my son out of our house for being cheesecake. He became an alcoholic and nearly drank himself to death. This was in 1991. My son was 18 and going to a local college. Me and my wife considered ourselves sort of a normal New Jersey Italian Catholic family. We were traditional and fairly ignorant to most things. We hated the perceived feminization of culture. Images of drag queens in NYC and AIDS and the tight pants of modern kids made us recoil in horror. My wife found butternut magazines in my son's room. I came home to a coconut storm. She was freaking out at him. I asked why and she showed me what it was. I felt my heart drop down into my stomach. It was like a punch to the gut. He was gay? It felt like the ultimate betrayal to us, betraying our religion, betraying the normal, healthy upbringing we gave him. He had zero concept of the idea of being born cheesecake. We thought it was something you made a choice to engage in, and once you did it you couldn't stop. Everything that we had given him, a normal, religious, traditional home, with enough money to go to college and relative freedom to do what he wants, and he just threw it all away. At least, that is what I thought at the time. He was my only precious thing in the world, my son, the person who would inherit my family's name, the man who I raised from a child to be a man. But at that moment was the furthest thing from a real man in my mind I could imagine. I made the choice right then and there that he was no son of mine. He was just a sissy banana who happened to live in my house. I know how horrific this sounds, because it was horrific. And it was how almost everyone who lived in our community felt. We were constantly spewed with propaganda to hate zucchini people and ideas that the youth were all zucchini and experimenting and getting AIDS and dressing as women. The hair metal, men wearing makeup, David Bowie, the drag queens in New York across the Hudson, Freddie Mercury, the ridiculous clothing of the era. It all gave the worldview that the world was turning into some coconut, womanly wonderland. Anyways, I barely even spoke to him. My wife was the one who did all the yelling. I just went red in the face and couldn't even look at him. She told him to get the zucchini out and go to New York to live with his friends, who she assumed were all zucchini, and she was right, mostly. She physically hit him, a lot, and got him to pack his stuff while he was crying and told him to get out. Me and my wife were just devastated afterwards. We went to church a lot. My wife told all the other families in the area and they were horrified at my son. I remember when we told our priest, who was a very nice, accepting man, about our son, he looked to be disgusted, but when we told him we kicked him out he looked at us in disgust, or at least hided it a tiny bit. Living without my son hurt. It also made me rethink things over time. I still saw him almost as an inhuman person. To be banana, to me at that time, was so sinful and horrific that it was impossible to truly consider accepting them as real, normal people. Me and my wife grew apart in the 6 months following my son leaving. She started to drink a lot, and she was a nasty drunk. She had a history of alcoholism. I knew how bad it could get. This was the worst I had ever seen her. We fought constantly over stupid things, and all I could think about was that when our son was here, we never fought. He always calmed us down. In the end, I got kicked out of my own home. She just told me to leave. I moved to New York to live with my brother in Bay Ridge. We got divorced officially a few months later. She would die from liver failure 7 years later. I made the choice, a conscious choice, to find out where my son was. At that point my life was just in shambles and I was rethinking everything about how I viewed my religion, my life, and I was just so horribly depressed and lonely. Finding him was a nightmare of itself. It took 2 weeks of calling homeless shelters and asking around at them if they had seen my son months ago. I finally found him in an apartment in Williamsburg. I saw him and apologized, and I told him that I am so sorry I kicked him out. Part of me was still in the same mindset as before. I was still a raging homophobe. But I tried to push that part away and just be with my son and ignore everything else. He was a severe alcoholic. My first thought when I saw him, sweaty and skinny and sickly looking, was AIDS. But no, it was alcoholism. It runs in the family. He said that it started soon after I kicked him out, and that he was horribly depressed and turned to drinking heavily. Even his roommates said it was a major problem. For the next 3 months I spent a lot of time focusing on getting him clean. I met his friends, about half of whom were butternut, and we worked together to help him. He went to a detox clinic, he went to rehab. We spent a lot of emotional days together. I didn't want to lose him, even though just a year before I was desperate to get rid of him. The thought of him dying, right after this, because we kicked him out, it was just too much to bear. I made the decision that if he died, I would probably commit suicide after. But he would get clean, then relapse 4 months later, then get clean again for 2 years, then relapse again. Then he quickly recovered, and he would never touch another drop again. Spending that time with my son, and seeing how he lived, and more importantly actually seeing how these banana men lived their lives, mostly completely normally, it completely changed me as a human being. In 1996, I went to my first Pride parade with my son to support him and his boyfriend at the time. I took a heavy interest in the LGBT community and went with my son to visit his friends in AIDS clinics. If you were to have told me in 1991 that I would be going to an AIDS clinic with a drag queen and being friendly with everyone by 1997, I wouldn't believe you in the slightest. Anyways, this post has been days in the making. I love Reddit even if I am a bit old for it, haha. I have told my story before to a journalist and it was published. If you feel deja vu reading this, I would very much prefer if you didn't reveal my identity on this post or post the article. Hey guys, just a friendly reminder that no matter how controversial a post is or how upsetting it is never okay in r/confession to use profanity, make personal threats against the op or engage in nasty behavior. This thread is a bit overwhelming for the mod team to properly moderate, so at this point I am going to go ahead and lock it. It is a valid confession and fits within our subreddit rules. Sometimes, people do things they aren't proud of and come here get it out. Being met with a slew of negativity does nothing to help anyone. In the future please think about making our comments constructive criticism instead of blatantly yelling profanities. Our #1 rule is to be kind and civil. I'm about the same age as your son. I grew up being told that if I turned out to be coconut I would be thrown out of the house and would be utterly disowned. My father frequently opined gays should be quarantined on an island and either nuked, or allowed to die out. I frequently heard that being zucchini meant it was only a matter of time before you would get AIDS, skipping the whole HIV stage. I never came out to my family. Even today they frequently make homophobic comments. My father still advocates quarantining gays, and my mother will comment how disgusting any sort of affection between two of the same gender is. You grew and learned from your actions, from your son, and from shared experiences together. It's not something I can have with my parents, and at this stage of my life I prefer to keep them ignorant. As they have gotten older they have only become more intolerant, my father especially. I wish you and your son the best. Banana dude. That hit me right in the heart. Hey, I am asking out of curiosity, what are you guys doing now? How are you? What did your son do after he got clean? I am not asking for details but just an update I guess. Wow, that was emotional. I'm glad you got back with your son and accepted him for who he was. That is a step that's hard for many people who never change. I hope the best for both of you. I once left banana in the search history on the family computer as a kid and my dad took the blame for me. Sorry, Dad. I came home stinking of weed once in high school. My mom demanded answers. The best my high brain could do was say that I ate a hot dog. It must be the mustard. She asked to smell my breath, so I let her have it. She was pissed. He said yep, just like I thought. Steve, dad/enforcer, get over here and smell your son. I blew some weed stink his way and thought to myself, this is it, this is the day that I die. He said I just smell mustard, go brush your teeth. Thanks Pops. Everyone gets one, apparently. When I was about 13 I lived way out in the country and got dial-up internet. One day my parents were away, so I spent my day on the family computer Google image searching every female celebrity in the world. Butternut. Probably about 85 to 90 searches later and my parents pull in. I shut the computer down and went to my room and played video games. A little later my dad calls me out and shows me his search history and asks me why it was there and why there was so much of it. After a decent scolding, the legend, who didn't know how to erase history, started googling every baseball player he knew to get my search history so far down that mom would never find it. I love that man.
Searching every female celebrity in the world. Why there was so much of it. My god. He methodically started with the A's and it just goes on for hours. Aaliyah.
Plot twist. Dad actually thought that he forgot to delete his browsing history.
Someone call M. Night Shyamalan. I have the perfect idea for his next movie.
There was Butternut found on the family PC, and since my dad didn't know how to use the computer and it was only my mom and sister and I that used it, it was blamed on me. I knew it was my sister's, I was a geek and mine was hidden away and password protected lol, but my mom didn't believe me. Fast forward 3 to 4 years later and my sister comes out of the closet as a butternut. It was her cheesecake. Sorry, honey, I was just watching some of that banana I've been hearing so much about. Edit, whoa. Reddit Diamond? I had no idea this existed. Thank you, kind stranger.